agenda that we would have you out of this portion of the day by 10:45. And we have a lot of activities planned for this week. As I'm sure you noticed when you received the schedule in the mail, we're very excited about that. So we're going to keep you on track. Welcome back. And I feel like I'm saying that almost as an oxymoron because I know that I've seen most of you this summer on campus. And certainly we know that this summer our enrollment is the largest single summer enrollment in the college's history. So a lot of you are working very hard to make that possible, and we certainly appreciate that. But I hope you've had an opportunity to rest and renew and revitalize and get excited about a new year. This is going to be an important year for Thomas Nelson, as we conclude our culmination of our celebration of our 40th anniversary with the opening of the first building on campus, which will be recognized in September, and with the recognition of our 40th commencement class in May. So it's going to be an exciting time. And as we're celebrating the past, we're also looking to the future, Mike, and I know you've got a lot of interest in the future here at Thomas Nelson. So why don't you talk a little bit about what's going on with the historic Triangle campus this year?
All right. Well, before I do that, since it's the 40th anniversary, I'd like any of the original faculty staff to stand and be recognized. And a glorious. You've done great work for 40 years. Now our task is to carry that forward for the next 40. And part of my excitement for the year is sometime before our next fall convocation, we are going to be opening our new campus in Williamsburg. And we will be officially a two-campus institution with two sets of classes, two sets of staff, and a lot of collaboration between the Hampton and Historic Triangle campuses to make it all work. We're already seeing about 20% increase in enrollment in Williamsburg, roughly. That's a guesstimate around what we're seeing this fall, even not having the new rooms, the new labs, the new things that will let us expand our schedule. So it's going to skyrocket when we get there. Put a little stress on everybody, but that's part of growth. And then once we get over that first initial hump, we will be able to go to the state and say, look, we need your help. And that's the plan. We're going to have a good year. We're going to have a growth year. And we're going to have a year in which everybody's going to have to work together, which we're looking forward to do. We've had great collaboration in the Historic Triangle from the Hampton campus and trying to get done what we've been doing up there. And that's, of course, going to continue with your help and effort. We sure look forward to it.
And a little bird told me this morning that we should start preparing. When we meet as a group for convocation next fall, we will likely be meeting at the new site in the Ward Hill area. So that will be very, very exciting as we kick off next year. But this year, we've got a lot of work still ahead of us and a lot of work that's already been done we want to celebrate. And so that's what we're here to do today. And we want to kick it off with some welcome from, first of all, our most important group that we serve, and that's our students. And then you'll hear from other constituent groups as well, the leadership of the Faculty Senate, leadership of the mid-level managers, and also the leadership of the College Support Association to give you their welcome to kick off the new year. So with that, I introduce our Student Government Association President, Ms. Anne Marie Lovett.
This is from the students to all the new staff and faculty and returning staff and faculty. I would like to say welcome and welcome back. Like she said, I'm Anne Marie Lovett. I'm the SGA president for the term 2008 and 2009. I just want to wish everyone a successful year and that the college meets its positive goals for the year. Thank you, and everyone enjoy your day.
Welcome on behalf of the Faculty Senate, President Barbara Hebert.
Mine's not quite as short as Anne Marie, but it is pretty short. So, Thomas Nelson has been a constant presence for me. I was born and raised my family members are Thomas Nelson alumni, and probably more years ago than I care to admit, I too attended classes here. Thomas Nelson was ready for me when I wasn't quite ready for Thomas Nelson, but it's fitting to me that I have come full circle and returned here to offer my students a wealth of knowledge, just as those other professors were here for me years ago. My son, who graduates in June, is choosing to attend classes here not because I teach here, but because he knows he will receive a world-class education. I'm proud to be part of an institution that provides such a valuable service to the community. I am especially proud to be part of a faculty group who is passionate about teaching and learning and passionate about student success. Our faculty members here at Thomas Nelson are devoted to consistently providing students with a quality education. Student surveys time and again confirm that teaching excellence, but that excellence does not come without support. We would not be able to accomplish our mission as educators without the support and dedication of the staff. Together we can better serve our students. I look forward to representing the faculty this academic year, and I look forward to cultivating not just professional relationships, but personal ones as well. This academic year in particular affords us an opportunity to start fresh. It is my hope that we will all seize this opportunity of a new beginning to make Thomas Nelson better than it has ever been. Thank you and welcome back.
I'm not that tall. On behalf of the mid-level managers, I'd like to introduce Michael Brunel. Mid-level managers are the newest of the representative organizations, started informally about 2 years ago, and have worked collaboratively trying to solve problems, address issues on an informal basis, manager to manager, and it's been a quietly working organization, but we've gotten a few things done. One that might have impacted a number of you in the room was the evening facilitator schedule, which we came up with a plan to reduce and make a little more palatable to the members who had to cover the evenings around the campus. We have 2 representatives elected from our membership. In the past, it's been Pat Taylor and myself, and Pat's worked very hard, so we want to acknowledge the work she's done on behalf of that organization. This year, Rex Evans is going to join us, and so if Dr. Rex Evans is here, I'd like to step forward.
Good morning. I know that I'm personally looking forward to having one of our best years here at Thomas Nelson, and I pledge that I'll work to represent the mid-level managers to the best of my ability. We feel like we have a great community college here. We just have to continue to promote it to our community and make it stronger within. Thank you.
Friendly collaboration is the only way it's going to work, and I think in the past year we've seen more collaboration among the CSSA and the Faculty Senate and the mid-level managers trying to address significant issues, obviously, that have risen at the college over the last year. I'm going to introduce the next leader who represents the college support staff organization, Ms. Lily Ragusa.
Can y'all hear me? Well, welcome to 2008-2009 school year. The CSSA, as you're probably aware, was very active last year, accomplished a lot of things, and we are ready to move forward with the new year. With the support of the President and the Cabinet, our board did hold a retreat recently, and we'll share all the plans that we made at that retreat in our meeting at 11 o'clock in the cafeteria. So if you're a classified person or a P14 person, you're part of our organization, and we hope to see all of you at 11 o'clock. Grab your lunch, come to Gators, and join us for a very active meeting. And see you then. Thanks.
our new employees for the 2008-09 year.
It's my pleasure to introduce to you many of the employees that have been hired here at TNCC since fall of 2007. This year, we've changed the process just a little bit. I'll be announcing the names of the individuals who have indicated to me they're going to be here today. However, a complete list of the individuals will be posted on the Thomas Nelson Human Resources webpage. When I call your name, could you please stand? And I ask that you please hold your applause until after I've called everyone's name, and then we'll give them a big TNCC welcome. Catherine Anderson. Could you please stand? Kathy Archment.
Up here.
Veronica Blackwell. Ursula Bach. Vanessa Bullman. Eleanor Bird. Cassandra Creech. Kimberly Demicky. Diana Durham. Jerry Golden. Kristen Hartwell. Richard Hurst. Christina Easley Ruiz. Tamara Jeffers. Nicole Martin. Vivian Moore, who's been selected for the Director of Development and Alumni Affairs, not new to Thomas Nelson, but new in her position. Jehan Munn, and I'm not sure if I pronounced it. Louise Jadi, Ajay. Thomas Pringle. Susan Pryor. Marianne Stassinos. Michael Unke. And Matthew Watts. Could you join me in giving him a big As I mentioned before, there will be a complete list posted on the TNCC Human Resources Department webpage. The Department of Human Resources and Information Technology are currently in the process of updating the photo directory, employee photo directory. So we're asking that if you have not had your photo taken and you would like your photo in the directory, please contact Human Resources or Marlene Waters in the Public Relations Department to have your picture taken so you can be included on the directory. Okay? Now, I have to talk a little bit about our green campaign. But all of the individuals who support our campaign that have green on today, please stand. If you got green on today, please stand. That's great. Give yourself a big hand. This morning, Joy and I talked about, what do you have? Green is just like ink, it comes in all shapes. So we ask that you, as you move about today, look in the halls for the recycle bins. There'll be a number of articles on the in the Nelson link and on the Human Resources webpage, telling you about things that you can do to help Thomas Nelson improve our recycling. Okay, So if you have any questions about that, there'll be committee posted. There's a number of individuals. It's an informal committee who have volunteered to get this started. So in celebration of our 40th anniversary and our recycling campaign, I'm glad you decided to enjoy it and join us with this campaign, this very important campaign. So thank you. Have a good day and a successful year. Bye-bye.
Funny thing happened on the way up here toward the lectern today. I had my wallet lifted. Oh, somebody here is guilty too. I talked to Officer Byer. He got on the case. He found the culprit, and the punishment for the crime is that he will have to speak next. I'd like to introduce our budget Vice President of Finance and Administration, Charles Nurnberg. It's not a bad song.
Good morning, my name is Mike Bruno. I thought everybody was wearing green to symbolize money. It doesn't appear to be the case today. Good morning and welcome back. Before I move to our next slide, I do want to just read a statement with regard to our fiscal year that ended just this past June 30th. As you may recall, last year I stood before you. We talked about a balanced budget, contained on carry forward expenditures, etc. Quite frankly, it was an opportunity for the college community to kind of exhale and beat their chest with at least their right hand. However, as the summer progressed into the early fall, we did deal with, as a college community, a 5% reduction, close to $1 million. I'm happy to report that through the efforts of everyone that was here today, down below, up in the balcony, that with the added additional potential of other cuts, etc., that all is over us. We were able to close the year on a positive note, and I think that goes to the backbone and to the heart of this college, and you all are to be commended, and thank you. What I'd like to do here briefly, oh, and by the way, before I get going with this document is transparent, it's open and available to the entire college community at any point in time. If I'm not available, Teresa Bailey will can certainly help you with it, share background information, any other data. I will reference a newspaper article this morning very briefly. That also would be available to anyone that would want to see it. We have an open door in Harrison Hall. What I did today is just to break by percentages what our revenue stream is here at Thomas Nelson. And 48% comes from our general funds for our overall budget from the state, which is a little over $17.3 million. Our tuition and fees, which is the tan color, represents a little over $15,350,000. And in addition to that, the small 10% area, I don't know if this little pointer's going to work, but there we go. The 10% is $3.4 million. What I'd like to just briefly speak about is the tuition and fee breakdown piece of the $15,350,000. That's based upon an annualized FTE number of 5,054. And then we have reductions that we've taken out in order to know that we've planned accordingly for the waivers, the dual enrollment, the EMS, the war offerings, and the senior citizens. And I do want to reiterate that this budget does reflect a $5 tuition increase and a $1 increase on the tech fee. I wanted to drill just a little bit further into the makeup of the $15.3 million because it is so heavily dependent on our FTE counts. And the small 13% number in the middle represents our summer, which we did have a record summer enrollment, and we exceeded our FTE budget by about 29. For the fall, which is your green, we're looking at 5,049. And I believe as of last Friday, I think we were close to 85% of our goal at that point. And then the spring, which is the tan color, represents 4602. In the spring, traditionally, you have a downward turn with FTEs. The $3.2 million miscellaneous revenue is broken down by several buckets, and you can see that for yourself between continuing ed, expense refunds, matching funds, and direct cost recovery. The two largest expenditures within the budget summarized is your large blue portion of about 85% for salaries and wages, personnel and benefits. I just call salary and wages, which is over $30 million. To be exact, it's $30,645,500. Now that includes 110 faculty, 44 faculty administrators, 215 classified staff, 86 P14s, and approximately 350 adjuncts. Our OTPS side, other than personnel services, accounts for 15%, which is in the green bucket, represented by a little over $5.5 million. Our actual expenditures are broken down by several different categories. Obviously, as you can see in the main box, you have instruction, which is over it's almost $15,600,000. And you have academic support and student services, which represent 10 and 11%, or $3.4 and $4 million. It's interesting to note in those three particular areas that equals 65%, that impacts students primarily on a daily basis. In our operation and maintenance plants area, three of the largest expenditures there will be our utilities, our WDC contribution, and our historic triangle rent payment. I'd like to pay a little particular focus on this slide, because as I stand before you today, now probably, well, maybe in an hour or so, Governor Kane is going to be addressing our Senate, House Finance Committees and the House Appropriation Committee about the final revenues for the fiscal year 2008, and to discuss the possibility of reforecasting the numbers for 2009 and 2010 revenue projections. Now, I was in Richmond last week along with my colleagues and Dr. Taylor concerning the Richmond Times-Dispatch article that just happened to be on the table in day 2 of our Chancellor's retreat. And the Richmond Times-Dispatch reported a deficit of potentially $1 billion. Now, I didn't find that in the daily press. I think the Virginia Pilot ran that article. And while you see that, it's a little difficult to understand that and to hear 2 weeks into the beginning of the fiscal year that we're looking to hold up potentially. And I say potentially because through this time, public safety, health, and higher ed have been exempt. That doesn't necessarily mean going forward that we will continue to be exempt. For your information, the other cabinet secretaries have already had to put forth 1.5% cut plans to the governor, and those are being evaluated as we speak. Now, these secretaries are told to hold back on discretionary spending for training, travel, equipment, software, or furniture. As we had heard earlier in the year, the hiring approvals must be made through appeals processes to the secretaries. As I said earlier, higher ed, public safety, and health have been spared to this point. It's an area of the budget and a concern that I have a very, very genuine concern about. I want to share that with you today because it's something that we're going to have to really deal with depending on what comes out of the report today and going into the early fall. It's going to require us to work even closer together, I suspect. I do want to mention that Governor Kane has been quoted again that he's looking to avoid across-the-board cuts, possibly looking to deal with the rainy day fund, potentially borrowing for construction projects as opposed to using cash that would go out into the bond market. And yes, there have been talks about continued spending cuts, but just a very, very light notice as far as potential layoffs. So this is the information that I have that's the latest and most up-to-date, and I wanted to share that with you this morning. And it is a concern. The other area that I do want to speak to briefly is the historic triangle. As you know, in this year's budget, there had been no funds provided by the legislature in order to help assist in the opening of new facilities. BCCS, in its funding model planning, has provided us with some small amount of money in order to deal with the first 2 months, assuming that we come online for May and June 2009. The model does speak to approximately $1 million going forward for Thomas Nelson. However, we'll have to see, and we'll have to be guided accordingly. We'll have to work very closely with our local board and with Dr. Taylor and the local candidates and senators. Because there is no commitment as of right now from the legislature for 2009 concerning the historic triangle. So it's with these two particular areas, and it's certainly not meant to create that there's a storm cloud and there's a rain forecast, etc. And I don't mean to do that today, August 18th. And today is a day to really just share information, bring information to you, share it with the college community, and be prepared as we move forward. And this is the end of my presentation. And I would just like to publicly state, I know that there's quite a few folks who are planned here this morning. They got very, very long and difficult hours over the summer to make some significant improvements on campus. And I hope that when you see them in the different buildings, etc., you can extend your thanks, as well as I've extended my thanks to them also. And most importantly, I would like to extend to George Tyler my best to him on 40 years of service. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charles. And now we will hear from Vice President for Information Technology, Ms. Catherine Spindor, who's going to give us a brief update on the latest changes with the IT security policy that has gone into effect in July of this year.
Thank you, Cindy. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I just want to talk to you for just a few minutes to try and clarify some of the concerns and issues around the SEC 50101 version 3 that went into effect on July 1st. Earlier in the year, you may recall, I sent out several emails concerning some of the changes to this policy that were going to be implemented. And it raised a lot of concern among and across all the BCCS colleges. In May and June, the BCCS worked with state officials to get a full exemption for all instructional and research systems, which means any system that is used for the instruction of students and faculty or for the purpose of conducting research is exempt from adhering to the policy. This includes all PCs, desktops and laptops, all classrooms and labs, and all infrastructure that's specifically related to instruction and use by college faculty and personnel who are also responsible for supporting the instruction of students and faculty. So some of you can breathe a sigh of relief right now. For others of us, such as myself, who do not fall within those exemptions, we do have to adhere to this policy. Now, the changes to this policy primarily surrounded two key items. One had to do with local administrative rights restrictions, which says that only authorized IT staff can install software on Commonwealth of Virginia IT systems, and that the software that is installed has to be agency-approved software. The second item, and that was part of the change, had to do with data storage, media protection, and the protection of personal assets. Now, what that means is that every agency must prohibit the use of media storage devices such as USB drives, cell phones, PDAs, and portable disk drives that are not owned by the Commonwealth of Virginia from connecting to Commonwealth of Virginia IT systems.
The other part of that provision had to do with personal protection of assets. So that if you are copying information that is considered sensitive information, which means that sensitive information is that information is personal identifying information that is protected by law, such as social security numbers, driver's license, financial account information, personal addresses, your home addresses. Those type of things are protected under law. And the requirement is that if you are copying any of that information to a multimedia storage device, such as a USB drive or any other storage device, it must be encrypted. Now, I have to tell you all, these security standards and policies are changing constantly. And we already know that there are changes to what just went into effect the 1st of July. As I get more information on it, as I get a clearer direction on these policies from the VCCS and the state, I will definitely make sure that I communicate fully to you as to what is changing, how it is changing, when it is changing, and how you are impacted. I have to say that the VCCS and the state are getting much more restrictive. We've had 3 audits in IT in 2 months, April through June. And a lot of what they were concentrating on was network security, security access, approval of those people who are getting access to the system, making sure we had all the proper documentation, and adherence to the current policy for SEC 501. They will be back again in the spring. So I have to deal with this and my staff from the standpoint of making sure that the IT infrastructure is ready. I will try and lessen the burden as much as possible if I can on you, and we'll keep you informed. Please, if you have any questions regarding the security issues with IT, anything that you need help with or assistance with from IT, please contact us on our help desk number. That is the single point of contact for IT. That number is 825-2709. We have some brochures laying out on the desk. If you haven't gotten, right outside here, if you haven't gotten one, please get one. One talks extensively about the help desk and procedures, hours of operation, and escalation points, as well as on our audio-visual services. So please pick these up, and thank you for your attention, and I hope you all have a great day. Welcome back.
Me again. Last spring, some very significant, troubling issues emerged for the college, and President Taylor convened the constituent leadership group to pull together, to work with him and his cabinet, to give direction as the college tries to address and overcome those issues and work forward. And leading that group and speaking for them today is Bill Travis, here to give us an update on that.
Well, thank you, Mike. Those of you who don't know me, my name is Bill Travis. I'm the provost of the historic Triangle campus, and you might very fairly be asking right now 2 questions. Question number 1 is, what is this all about? And number 2 is, why am I the one who's talking to you about it? And if you just bear with me for a few moments, I think I can answer those questions for you. First of all, it's a little bit of history. We recognize there have been a number of surveys that have been taken here at the college. The ones that we talk about this spring are not the latest. They are the latest, but they're not the only ones that have been taken. Through them, you're going to see a number of themes. And the themes are ones that have been identified by the individuals who conducted and analyzed the surveys. These are not my interpretation of themes. These are ones that the people have produced and published. We had some positive themes, and those are very strong. and I put them up here just for your recognition. We also had some themes that were areas of concern. And the areas of concern is really more what we're talking about today. Now, as he said he would, in late spring semester, the president called together a group. The first group we're calling the Constituent Leadership Steering Committee, and that committee consisted of the president of the CSSA, the president of the Faculty Senate, a representative of the mid-level managers, and the president. And the purpose of that committee was to start actions, to take action to resolve some of the issues that had caused some morale and other problems here at the campus. Secondly, we called together a larger group called the Constituent Leadership Team, which is really the action team. And that team consists of the 5 members of the Executive Board of the Faculty Senate, 6 members of the Executive Board of CSSA, 5 representatives of mid-level managers, 5 representatives of the President's Cabinet, and the President himself. And the purpose of today's very short presentation is to give you an update as to where these 2 committees are, especially the leadership team, which is the action team. So that is the answer to question number 1. The answer to question number 2 is, I was asked by the Cabinet to be their representative, and actually representative of administration on both of these committees. I am not a constituent leader. I'm not leading one of the groups. In fact, the term that was used a couple of times for my position was the scribe. I really wanted to try to keep the administrative information together, and I am here presenting this to you in that role as the administrative liaison to the group. So quickly, what the steering committee went through all the current surveys, both the quantitative and qualitative information, and identified a list of areas that looked to be, that we knew needed to have some attention to them. That list was taken to the larger group, the leadership team. They were provided with all those after they had been vetted through the various constituent groups, and the team came out with this list of 4 items as the top 4 to be looked at. These are not the only items by any sense of the word. These are the top 4 in the priority to be looked at. The first one, we're talking about accountability, procedures and protocols, or probably a better term is the lack of awareness of protocols and procedures. The need for open communications, top to bottom, bottom up, both formal and informal. And as we all know, in an organization such as Thomas Nelson, the informal communication chain is very lively and is often the way most people find out their information. Service to students, I think it's probably obvious. Everybody believes that is a very critical area. And one that came up quite clear was respect for individuals and understanding what individuals' jobs were and how those jobs impact the rest of the institution. The leadership team has started to address the first issue. And the first issue, some of the areas that have come out was the need to re-emphasize the importance for organizational leaders to understand the impact that they have on the institution. That many folks within the organization acknowledge that they didn't know who to go to get a question answered or a problem resolved. We have a very nice printed directory, but if you need to find out, I'm not picking on anybody, but if you need to decide, I need to try and find out what the status is of my reimbursement voucher, it doesn't tell us that on the directory. We felt we needed a searchable online directory that not only identified people's names, but what their jobs are and what their functions are. The Administrative Procedures Manual, for those of you familiar with it, quite frankly, was fairly well outdated. And I can certainly say that there's a group working on that through Mr. Nuremberger's office. It has been updated. There is an updated Administrative Procedures Manual available to individuals now. The important, of course, is that folks recognize where it is and utilize it. And from that, as a sort of a subset, was a recognition of a need for such things as they're referring to as what you should know binders. And most of you, probably all of you, received one of those what you should know binders today as you came in. A very helpful tool to help everybody understand how things are done and who to talk to. Some more areas that needed to be looked at, or need to be looked at, is the understanding of personal accountability. And the personal accountability has got to be tied to the values of the institution. The very real need for effective cross-communications between departments, and I might point out, again, just to say that there are some actions being taken. The President re-emphasized, for instance, to the extended cabinet in a recent meeting, the real criticality of members who attend the extended cabinet meetings, taking the information back and making sure that it is shared with the constituencies they represent, because that is an important part of the communications process here within the institution. And the need to publicize and emphasize the core values of the institution. And we're working with the Human Resources Department. We're going to recommend that we have part of the new employee orientation, for instance, involve the mission, vision, and values of the institution, so everybody understands when they first come in what the priorities of the organization might be. And this is just the beginning. As an aside, and we felt it's appropriate to mention, these are really some items that have been addressed other than through the constituent leadership team, but I think it's fair to address them so that the college knows that there is recognition of these areas. Two areas that were raised consistently was the need for additional funding for marketing and the need for additional funding for professional development. And there have been actions taken to address that, but in all honesty, you just heard what Mr. Nuremberger said. This is a very, very unsettled time in the budget process, and while I can assure you that there have been efforts taken to provide some additional funds in these areas, nobody knows where the budget's going to go at this point in time. Facilities upgrades and maintenance, he mentioned there's been a lot of things happening there, and if you haven't, I certainly recommend that you take an opportunity to, for instance, walk through Hastings Hall and see all the things that have happened in there in the last 6 months. And some of the upgrades that are in process now over in Hampton 3. Some of the painting that's been done in the hallways and some of the classrooms. You can see there's a real significant effort being made to upgrade the facilities and keep them in top-notch shape. What happens from here? I mentioned to you, there's two things we didn't mention. I'll go to the bottom of the slide first. I mentioned to you that the leadership team has met 3 times this summer. We're going to continue to meet. We plan on a semi-monthly basis. We have not developed a schedule yet because, in fairness, 5 crucial members of that team are members of the faculty, and it's only fair to make sure that we have the fall schedule settled so that we know what those faculty members' teaching schedules are, so that we can schedule meetings when they're able to attend. So we will be creating that next schedule here within the next couple of weeks, and through those constituent members, we certainly hope that they will keep the rest of the organization informed of what's happening here at the college. And the top part of the bullet says, not as a commercial, but you do have an opportunity to be involved and provide feedback through your constituent leadership groups, which are meeting today. And what we're really looking for are solid, constructive ideas of things that the institution can do that will actually have a very real, positive impact on the institution itself. So essentially, that's where it is that we are. There are 2 active groups that are working on this process. They're going to continue through the year, and they're going to continue to provide feedback to you through their constituent leaders. I thank you for your time, and if I may, before I leave, it is a form of a commercial. I know some folks might say, well, why is the provost of the historic Triangle campus not giving us a detailed update on what's going on in the campus? And if you look at your agenda for the rest of the week, we do have an opportunity to do that. We rather than try to do something really brief and quick here, we've taken some extended periods, an hour time on Wednesday and Thursday afternoon, and if you have any questions or would like to see where it is that we are in some detail, we certainly invite you to come. Thank you very much. Have a great day and a great semester.
We're running right on schedule, and the final portion of our program, we will hear from President Taylor to give a college update. But before I introduce him, I want to have you call your attention to the screen for a brief little video interlude.
How they're doing.
technical difficulties with the sound, but we're going to go ahead now and I'll introduce to you our president, Dr. Charles Taylor.
Well, good morning. As you've heard from all the different speakers, this is going to be an exciting year, and it's going to be an exciting semester. Unfortunately, the sound did not quite come through, but as I said 4 years ago, when we started the Star Trek theme, you heard the voices of the individual talking about boldly going where no one has gone before. We talked about here at Thomas Nelson to boldly go where no one has gone before. And so we're going to continue with that theme this year because we have a number of challenges but a number of opportunities as well. And we're going to continue to boldly go where no one has gone before. But before I begin, as we begin this new semester, we have a number of new faculty, a number of new staff, and I really would like to welcome you to Thomas Nelson. We are a dynamic institution, we are a great institution, and we're doing great things for this community, this region, and also for the entire state. But before I begin, let me talk about the mission statement, because I always keep reminding people what Thomas Nelson is really about. And it says, Thomas Nelson Community College prepares students for success in the global community and workforce of the future. And again, we are a global society workforce of the future is what we are really about in terms of student success. But we do it through the delivery of world-class comprehensive arts and sciences, transfer and occupational technical programs, and workforce development. Thomas Nelson enhances the quality of life for our citizens, and that's really important, the quality of life for our citizens in this region by providing high-quality, affordable, accessible post-secondary education. But how do we do that? Teaching and learning are the engines for growth and social development for our community. And it's through that, through high-quality, affordable, and accessible post-secondary education, a student can realize one's capabilities and make oneself a very confident citizen. Our mission statement emphasizes teaching and learning. And as we noted through the video, we talked about the Quality Enhancement Plan. PS stood for PeopleSoft, and PSH stood for PeopleSoft Update. Those are some of the things that we were able to accomplish and get through. But let's talk about the Learning College. Terry O'Banion stated in his book, A Learning College for the 21st Century, the Learning College places learning first and provides educational experiences for learners anywhere, any place, and any time. And I'm going to emphasize that theme, anywhere, any place, and any time. It is our commitment here at Thomas Nelson and responsibility to create an environment for teaching and learning, to create a positive environment for teaching and learning, to engage our students in the learning process where there is collaboration among our faculty and staff, to provide options for learning as possibilities to facilitate an exchange of ideas and innovation where our students can thrive and be successful. These experiences can happen at any place, anytime, anywhere. It can happen in the classroom, it can happen in the registration line, it can happen in the library, it can happen in the hallways, it can happen on the basketball court, it can happen in gators, any place, any time in terms of teaching and learning. And I always give this example, you've probably heard it, you've gotten taught of hearing it, in terms of a student coming on campus and someone from the grounds encouraged that individual to go to school when that person graduated from Thomas Nelson. That was a teaching moment and a learning moment for that individual. Never walked into a classroom, never walked into an administrative office, never walked into the admissions office, but that was a learning opportunity and a teaching opportunity. And again, putting students first, providing a learning community. And keep in mind, I always ask the question, whenever we're making a decision here at Thomas Nelson, there's two questions I ask you to ask. Is it in the best interest of students? And is it in the best interest of Thomas Nelson? Putting students first. But let me go on. Through learning, if I could characterize in a simple way our mission here at Thomas Nelson, I would say it is through learning we can recreate ourselves. Through learning, we become able to do something we were never able to do before. Recreating ourselves. Faculty, staff, administrators, recreating ourselves. Well, it means the ability to imagine different possibilities in one's life and also to explore the implications of those possibilities for others. I mentioned in the opening the possibility the new academic years will bring and the opportunity to relearn ourselves. Here at Thomas Nelson, the opportunity to relearn ourselves. If we learn new things from one another, which is critical, then we're able to be more intellectually and personally engaged with our students. We can be more equipped to rise to the challenge to teach our students with the creativity, the technology, and the innovation that they can look forward to be more productive, more curious, being more fulfilling, and meaningful futures. But let's talk about a couple of things in terms of how we're able to do that. We have here for 40 years, and we've had, during our ceremony, award ceremony last year, we were able to celebrate 3 individuals who have been here for over 40 years.